Rebels of the world on 3 different platforms. We've already got 4 of you that have joined us. Hello, Corinda. Hello, Cheryl. And hello to anyone else whose names that I can't see yet. Feel free to comment and interact with us as we do this. I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited to bring you Samantha Garstin, who is doing a countdown. The countdown is on. Is the countdown still on? No. So who is doing a masterclass for us in Rebel Yell Club first. Sorry, let me just slow the brain down. Doing a masterclass for us in Rebel Yell Club in August. But first, I wanted to bring you all a flavour of Samantha, because not all of you will get access to that masterclass. If you do want it, then you can get access, but you have to either be a member of Rebel Yell Club or get a ticket. The link is now at the bottom. Now, I want to really, sort of, as I say, bring a flavour of Samantha to you, because she and I have had an incredible conversation the other week that's really sort of changed my perspective on a lot of things. And I then also had a really in-depth conversation with 2 of our master rebels, Lisa Avins and Tracy O'Rourke, and they wanted to join as well. So I'm going to bring all 3 of them in. So this is Samantha. Hello, Samantha. Give us a wave.
Hello.
And in comes the master rebels of the hour.
Hi.
So I'm going to read you all a little bit of a little bit of a bio about Samantha, so you can understand a little bit more articulately than I just introduced her as, what she's all about. So Samantha helps women to work in harmony with their hormones through cycle syncing and hormone balancing, so they can work with a little more ease each and every day. I definitely want some of that. She helps clients to feel empowered by their own body literacy, which is a term that I just find really interesting, to shift away from the limiting structures and mindsets that keep them small and give them tools to create their own way of working that aligns with how they feel and what they need. She's a certified cycle coach and mentor, and has built a brilliant business that includes Root and Rise yoga. It is yoga, isn't it? Root and Rise. Yeah. And also a really great membership called the Cyclical Collective. So real rule-breaking stuff, this, guys, because we're very used to, I think, being taught certain things in school about our bodies, and we've also got an awful lot of taboos about our bodies, the kind of female-related cycles in particular. So this is a great topic for us to broach in Rebel World. Also, as a little extra, Corinda, who is watching us, has just said that he's having surgery soon for his eyes, which is amazing news, Corinda. That's brilliant. So you can see again. I love that. That's brilliant. I'm really excited about that for you, Corinda. So speaking of bodies then, Samantha, tell us a little bit about you, how you got to this place in your business and your life. What is it that's brought you to this, and why are you so passionate about it?
Well,
Big
firstly,
question,
thank you
isn't
for
it?
yeah, I'm very happy to be here with you all, and I get to talk about my favourite thing in the world, which is menstrual cycles and periods and menstrual wellness. So, I arrived here. Well, it was kind of a funny trip. So I left my marketing and sales job, and I set off into the world to become a yoga teacher because that was my passion. And when I was on my yoga teacher training, we covered part of the Ayurvedic cycles, and one of those was the menstrual cycle, and my mind was just blown. So I was in my late 30s at the time, and I just remember thinking, like, why has no one ever explained this to me in this way before? And I got back off my yoga teacher training and set about finding how to learn more about it. And yeah, I was so blown away by it. I took a facilitator training so that I could now facilitate this education, and I sort of combined it with some other things I do in my business. I have two strains, one sort of for movement and yoga, and one through business coaching and cyclical business coaching specifically. So yeah, it was I didn't end up being like the yoga teacher I envisioned, but I just, I never would have imagined being a menstrual coach. If someone told me when I was like, at 16, would you like to be a teacher or a pilot or whatever, menstrual coach, never.
No, that's not normally on the matrix, is it?
No, I remember doing those quizzes, and it was always like, nothing fits your recommendations. I was like, well, I'm not surprised.
Do you know what I got? I got be a buyer for a clothing company. Came out on one of those tests I did.
Oh. I got tree surgeon.
Amazing.
No idea what I got.
How weird. So just right, and I love the fact that it's kind of the life's taking you on a twisty turny journey to get to what you're doing now. It's often the way, isn't it? And one of the things that I think is great about what you do is you quite clearly practice what you preach as well, and you put a lot of this into your own life. So what sort of difference has it made to you to follow some of the principles that you teach other people?
Good question. Yeah, it has. It's changed everything in my life, actually. So one of during my yoga teacher training, it was bar two guys. It was like all women, and I'd come from a very masculine world. I was in marketing and sales, and before that, in the past life, I worked as a chef. So two very male body, male energy places, which I'd never really left room for my femininity. And I don't know, I just ended up hanging around with a lot of boys. I was often an honorary boy, like allowed to go on boys nights out and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just didn't have a lot of feminine energy, but my yoga teacher training kind of blew me away because it was the first time I'd been with a large group of women in that way. I'd always thought, I don't really get on with other women. I don't really relate on that level. And I think that it's because I didn't really relate to that myself, because I hadn't really had that experience. So it was kind of a combination of things, of experiencing that, it was a really intense month being in that training with these like beautiful, supportive women. And I was like, I want more of this in my life. And it was that combined with just before I had, about a year before I went on my teacher training, I had a coil and I had that removed. And so I was beginning to have my natural cycles back. So it's kind of a combination of an awakening of my own cyclical energy, being within more feminine environments, having the outlet to express that. And I just wanted more of that in my life. And I don't know, the importance of that had just eluded me up to that point. And so becoming a coach and really embodying more of this like feminine way of being that I had previously shunned because of the conditioning, work harder, faster, whatever all the other toxic things are about, like man up and be like more stronger and all of those kinds of things. Like that's toxic for everyone, male or female. But I'd kind of previously existed in those environments, and so then going into this like world of like embracing the feminine was really powerful for me. It allowed me to be in acceptance of a whole other side of my being that previously I had never let come to the surface, because I was conditioned to see that as weakness, that it be less than. So although there's like lots of like very tangible like benefits in terms of like I have more like balanced energy, like I have like awareness of like my cycle and my periods, and I know what's going to happen, and physically like I feel better, but mentally those were the unexpected shifts that I didn't really anticipate through this work. It's that I found a deep sense of self-acceptance and an understanding of myself through a different lens. We're multifaceted, and that means that there's not just one way of being, and especially when you have a pronounced cycle, there's a spectrum, of ways of being, but we're sort of driven to really just look towards those kind of, and that doing energy, that kind of superwoman status. So many people say, even I used to say, oh God, there's only like 1 week a month I feel great, and the rest are kind of like me. A bit sketchy. But when we're conditioned to only see that 1 week as like the bar of expectation, we're never really giving ourselves time to look at those other phases, and allow them to be in acceptance of them, surrender to them, and see who we are. When we let all of that come in. I feel like I went on a tangent.
No, that was a beautiful tangent. And I think, this is a good moment to sort of reiterate, as I have done when I've been kind of talking about us having this conversation. This is not just for women, is it? This is not just for people who menstruate. This is for everybody. And I think I particularly love, when we spoke the other day and what you've said now about this concept of the almost like a patriarchy and this male energy, be more male in how we show up in the world in terms of that doing that active stuff. And actually Nadia's comment here, so Nadia is one of our master rebels, and they identify as non-binary. So their comment there about being in touch with my feminine self at certain times with certain people, I think is really interesting, because we can be, I think it's so important to honor what our bodies want of us, and it then gives us almost a platform to be whoever we feel comfortable to be in the world. The more we can really get to know our bodies and understand how they tick biologically, and what our energy flows are like, and how we feel differently at different times of the month, the better we can surely create a sense of freedom to be whoever we are at our core.
Absolutely. The patriarchy is toxic for everyone.
Yeah.
But because the imbalance in the world we live in is that's kind of my mind just has gone blank. That is the idealized, that's the word I was looking for, that kind of energy. And for myself, I operated a lot in that energy and felt very unfamiliar with the feminine. And it's not that I've gone the other way, and that's not what it's about. It's embracing both sides, because we both have this masculine, feminine energy within us. And that's expressed differently in different times of the cycle. So half of the cycle is what I call the doing phase, or it could be more related to that yang energy. And then the other half of the cycle is that yin energy. It's more about being. And we're so conditioned to look to always the doing, like our world is like based on productivity and achievement, and you wear a badge of exhaustion as a medal of honor. And so there's an imbalance, which is what I was living in. and never made space for the feminine because it felt like a weakness to me. And so I didn't really identify with that at all on anywhere, and I felt uncomfortable actually too. But being in a space with a strong feminine energy allowed me to kind of see both sides of the coin, because this is the thing, we're cyclical, which means there's no linear anything. Everything moves in cycles, whether that's your doing and your being, your masculine and feminine energy, your times of productivity, your times of rest. It all works. If you look to nature to kind of inform how we are, that's the way the world works that we live in. We're in the peak of summer, and everyone's probably feeling a bit like, gosh, I'm kind of looking forward to autumn to like get back to like my routine at the moment, because it goes in cycles. Now we have a peak of energy in the year, but come winter we'll all be snuggled up watching Netflix under a blanket.
Yeah, too right.
And that's just, that's the thing, we're cyclical.
Yeah, we do. Fluid beings, aren't we? There's so much I want to say, so much I want to ask, but I know Tracy and Lucy will be dying to get in there. So I'm just going to let them fight for who speaks first. Who's it gonna be?
I find it really interesting. No, so I never had the relationships where I could talk to, not because I was embarrassed, but because I've never had a group of friends where I felt comfortable enough to express what I was going through. And I think the first time I ever talked about it was with Lisa and Emma. Probably, was it last week?
Yeah, it was
maybe before then. Yeah, and it was so liberating to kind of say, I don't really understand my body. At 42 years old, I thought I'd got it down, and I've started going through changes that I didn't know that I would be going through at this point in my life. I thought that it was going to be, the next phase was going to be the menopause, which I would expect later. But it's my periods have changed. The way that my body sort of, the build up to it, so my hormones, my emotions, everything like that, it's all new to me. I was on the pill from 16. All the way up until I had my son. I didn't go back on the pill. I was then sterilized. And it's just, life seems to have just sort of caught up with me, where I'm like, I don't understand what's happening to me. And I'd never expressed that to anybody until I spoke to Lisa and Emma. And they were kind of like, yeah, we kind of, not necessarily the same thing as I was going through, but they were so like, completely understand where you're coming from. This is what I'm going through, or this is what I've experienced. And it was so liberating to have that conversation, to kind of go, it's okay to have that chat. It's okay to not feel that you have to go, it's my time of the month. You can say, I'm on my period. There's nothing embarrassing about saying that. And I think, as maybe our generation has always kind of been educated that you need to be polite about these things and not embarrass people.
And apologetic.
So sorry, it's just that time of the month.
Yeah.
And when my mum was going through the menopause, it wasn't spoken about. She was just going through something. So when she cried over burnt sausages, I didn't understand what she was going through.
I would cry over burnt sausages at any time of the month.
Well, yeah. So for me, it's just been one of those that I'm like, I am so interested in understanding, the way that these things work, what I can expect, what's happening to me now, what other people are going through, and just things like that. Everybody's laughing about the burnt sausage, but I'm not kidding. She did.
Yeah.
Just this taboo thing, like, this is one of the things that I was really interested in doing, is actually candidly talking about this stuff, out on a live platform. Nadia's asking a question as well about, are we seasonal, in the true seasonal sense as well. And I'll remind us to get back to that, because we're I don't want to not capture it, I guess. So yeah, what any thoughts on that, Samantha, on what Tracy's just talked us through?
So many thoughts. I mean, have you got 6 hours?
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? I was like, oh, we'll just do like half an hour, and I knew when I said that, I was like, there's no way, there's no way.
Well, we've got to save some for the masterclass, so we've got to save.
Yeah.
If you want what you want, the real good juicy juice, you kind of come the masterclass.
So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. There is a huge amount of shame and taboo, especially like even when I was at school. So I'm 41 now. Even when I was at school, there was even more so in my mother's generation. You know, she's like a mid-70s now. So, you know, it's getting better as we go generation by generation. But even now, there's still a huge amount of shame. And this is one of the biggest, I guess, really things that is one of my main like passions, is really about changing the conversation about being in a body that bleeds. And you know, people have periods. That's not like just for women. There's a spectrum of what can happen, and equally is lots of women that cycle but don't bleed for so many reasons, whether that's a hysterectomy or PCOS, endometriosis, pre or postnatal. There's just so many reasons like why that there might be varying degrees of cycles.
So that means I don't bleed, but I definitely have a cycle.
Yeah. And likewise, there's like different types of contraceptives. You know, we're so very unique in the way that we experience things. There's not a blanket kind of like one size fits all. Like everyone will have their own personal experience, but there are certain frameworks that we can learn to understand this. So I'm going to sort of do 2 questions at once. So yes, we are cyclical and do work with the seasons, and that is something we're definitely going to explore in the masterclass. That is a huge part of like learning to understand and identify like our energy and how we fluctuate. It doesn't mean you have to have a period or that needs to be evident, or to still have an existing cycle. So this is an education that is with you for life, to serve you perimenopause, during perimenopause, and postmenopause. And there's different frameworks that you can use to capture that cyclical energy at every point in your life. It's not a one and done. It's something, a practice you will keep for the rest of your life to help you understand your body and your energy, to understand what you need and when, and how best to look after yourself, self-care practices, boundaries, different like mindsets to look out for. It all works in tangent with your cycle, like where you identify like you know, as a person that you are, like whether you identify like for example, I'm a bit of I'm probably a bit of an ambivert. Like I'm quite good at doing like out in person things, but I need time to decompress after. But other people who are more extrovert will identify with other times of the cycle, and then there'll be other things that they need to like work on perhaps in their times that they don't feel so comfortable. Kind of like indicates maybe some sort of like triggers or unresolved. Like there's so much to it, and there's a simple kind of like process that underpins it of through tracking that helps you kind of understand all of that. But that
I've started using your tracker actually. So guys, you need to get on this. We need to give people a link in the comments actually for the link to your free tracker, because it's brilliant. I've already started, you know, I've already seen, you know, some benefit from it even after a few days. It's really, really good. Downloadable guide and everything. It's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. And that's where those insights begin to like happen, like when you start to learn about what's happening in your body and when. And then when you experience something abnormal or not normal, you know, not normal for you at least, then you can sort of start to track that. And then, okay, what's going on here? Like you can do more self-inquiry fiery about like what's shifting and changing. Perimenopause is something that can happen as early as 40. So the average age of menopause in the UK is about 52. And nobody tells you about 40, like you're going to start going into perimenopause. Like that's like a genuine surprise for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean that you can't start working with your cycle. It's more important, more than ever, especially in your 40s, to kind of capture the information you have about your cycle to serve you going forwards through your perimenopause journey into postmenopause, and to really understand this about yourself. And also working with like different frameworks that we have, like whether you have consistent cycles and periods or not, there's still frameworks that help you build in self-care practices to help you manage your symptoms going through perimenopause. So it's very, I can't express like how like important it is to kind of capture like any kind of cycle that you have, like no matter how sporadic or existent. So I hope that kind of goes to answer like a few things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Lisa, what are your burning thoughts?
I think it's interesting about the perimenopause because I'm certain I'm in perimenopause. However, the difficulty is with me, and this is kind of the interesting factor, I'm like Tracy, I've taken the pill for years and years and years, and then came off it when I had my daughter, went straight back on it. And when I hit 40, I'm 42 now. When I hit 40, I kind of said to the nurse, "Do you think I should come off the pill now?" Blah blah. No. You can take this until you're 50. And I'm like, okay, but it's kind of that thought of, am I masking certain things that I'm not effectively able to go through and deal with and allow my body to be natural in? Because I'm masking things that should be happening. The cycle in terms of the emotions, the hormones, my immune system goes down, something chronic. I get a sore throat once a month. And it's kind of understanding that actually probably I'm in perimenopause, but the only way they tell you to look for that is by seeing changes in your bleeding cycle.
See, so this is fascinating, isn't it? And one of the things that really stood out from the conversation you and I had, Samantha, was you saying to me that actually every natural cycle that you have is essentially like money in the bank when it comes to that, you know, when you get to your menopausal phases of life, that it actually pays you dividends in so many ways. So every single one you can experience is good. And, you know, I know that's not accessible for everybody, and there's lots of reasons why we wouldn't necessarily have natural cycles, but it did really stick with me, that.
Yeah, there's lots that I mean, I am definitely pro like natural cycles, but there's no shade on anyone who chooses like contraceptives. It definitely has its place in the world. I chose to come off like all hormonal contraceptives, and I use natural methods, which involves tracking and using my like body symptoms and signals. But there is definitely pros to having your natural hormones, and the synthetic hormones that you experience on hormonal contraceptives are not the same as our natural hormones, and they don't have the same like perks, as it were. For example, progesterone is great for skin, hair, and bones and all that good stuff, and progestins, which are in contraceptives, are not. So, you know, they definitely serve their place, and it's a huge decision with contraceptives. But I just knew that going in, for me personally, I knew I wanted to go into my sort of 40s, eyes wide open, and understanding my hormonal shifts and knowing what was happening for me in my body and understanding that. A huge part of the perimenopause journey is learning to manage our stress, because we are naturally less tolerant due to what's happening with our hormones. And so I want to know when and where I need to put in those extra measures to like help me go forward. And I just feel like I'm more informed by my body than anything else. That there's no test for perimenopause. You can do a blood test, but it will give you a snapshot in time. It's not really indicative of anything in particular. That's why they say, you know, just it's because of your cycle, because it's kind of no real hard and fast rule. It manifests in so many different ways for different people. It's only if you know your cycle that you can actually learn to see those shifts and fluctuations and changes. There's like 100 different symptoms of perimenopause, so it would be really hard to say, well, you have to look for X, Y, and Z. But by knowing and understanding the cycle you do have, you start to notice when there like are shifts and abnormalities for you. So I'm fascinated by our bodies, and that's what the term body literacy means. It means you're literary. You have literacy of your in your own body. You understand what that means. I often say like our body's love language is the symptoms and signals it gives us. We just have to learn how to like translate that. And we're often pushed to like look externally for the answers, you know, or like hitting up Dr. Google, which really is never going to give you anything conclusive until you know yourself, like intrinsically, like without question. So that's something really magical, I think, that you can learn from having, you know, a natural cycle. Not to mention that like when it comes to like vital signs, you know, if you've ever heard that expression, oh, to have your vitals checked, you know, like pulse, temperature, all of that kind of thing. So you're so that periods are starting to be recognized as the 5th vital sign, which is medically. So that's a huge leap forward. So everything from the duration, length, consistency, color, smell, all of that goes to inform like how your health is in your body, like what's going on, and whether there's any like underlying challenges or difficulties or symptoms of things to like ask more questions about. So it's not just a period, it's a way to be really informed about like your body.
Totally. By the way, we've got a Facebook user saying, bloody work, sorry I'm late. I don't know who you are, Facebook user, give us a little clue. That vital signs thing, you know, it just those moves forward we're making as a, you know, society, and understanding what our bodies can tell us, I just think is really, I mean, it can't be anything but positive, can it? Oh, hello, Shanley. So yeah, so what else was I going to say? The body literacy, yeah. So it was linked into that. Sorry, I was too busy monitoring the comments then. As I say, so many things that I could so happily talk about here, but I know Lisa and Tracy kind of probably got questions still. Have you?
I have, but I kind of almost want to wait for the masterclass.
Cool.
Yeah, because I don't want to cover off too much here, and then either have to repeat it or kind of not have anything for the masterclass.
Yeah,
because it's just there's so much to cover.
Oh, there really
and it's
is.
so, I think for the first time in my life, I've kind of realised I don't understand my cycle. I don't understand how my body works.
Yeah.
And I just want to be able to make the most of the information that I've got and use it to properly understand what's happening to me, and kind of be able to educate my husband to kind of say, this is what's happening. Because bless him, you both know, Samantha, my husband is the most supportive, amazing man I've ever met in my life. I adore him. And I'm very lucky. And I can ring him and say, I had a very emotional week last week, and I know it was my hormones. And I rang him and I was in tears on the phone, and I said, I know this is my hormones. I can tell that. But I don't understand why this is, you know, it's never happened before. It's probably over the last year that I've started going through this. But I want to be able to give him the information to say, this is what's happening. This is how things are working. Because if he's got that information, he's in a better place to be able to understand things.
Yeah.
And be able to support me, but just generally understand how things work. There's no education of it in school. For me, I don't think there's enough. You kind of gone, this will happen and this is what you use. See you later. That's the level I got.
Lessons.
And I mean, I've even got, I've got a boss that's brilliant in the fact that he's so open. I can say to him, I'm having an emotional week this week, and he'll say, is it your periods? And I'm like, I've never had that before. So things are changing. And I just think we really, as a society, we just need to be more open. And this, for me, is the key conversation that everybody should be having and understanding.
Great. Look at this. Tim is saying his wife is on Instagram as Sophie, Mistress of Art. Definitely looking that up. And has done a 12-month art piece using a monthly boot. Wow. My mind is boggling and I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. That is incredible. I'd like to see that. Yeah, I've seen another woman. She's I can't remember her name. I follow her, but she's always doing beautiful artwork with her menstrual blood, which is incredible. Which sounds like wow. But yeah, once you start like delving in the world,
smasher, though, isn't it? A massive taboo smasher. Is there such a phrase?
But ironically, the thing that really gets to me is, why is it so taboo? Because without it, we wouldn't be able to create children. We wouldn't be able to populate the earth. So surely
it's happened since the beginning of time, and we're still now the age we are where we don't understand it. We just go, it's just something that happens every month.
We're not likely to evolve out of it, are we?
It is almost down to this toxic masculinity that you were touching on before, Samantha, where it is that everything is such a male orientated world, and we don't work that way anymore. It's not that simple. We're such a fluid society now, and it should be we should be able to be more open about it.
Well, this is interesting, right? So I definitely want to look at this. So Cheryl, will you just tell us what you mean by the male side of things, so we can perhaps look at that a little bit more? But Cheryl's also, this is Cheryl's reaction to the art thing, and totally understandable, and that is probably an awful lot of people's reactions. But isn't it interesting, because we've been taught to be disgusted by it? We're not naturally disgusted by it. When we're born as children, the only things I think there's only one or two things that we're disgusted by as naturally as children, and that is the smell of rotting meat and something else, can't remember what it is. We are taught to be disgusted by bodily functions. We have to learn that.
It'd be an experiment, wouldn't it, if you showed to somebody who wasn't aware of the menstrual blood that was used for those piece of art, if you showed them it and they went, wow, that is amazing. Oh, by the way, this is how, then you would have the, whoa. So that sounds
fascinating.
We're conditioned that way, like when, I don't know if you've ever had like when you were younger, like a boyfriend, and then you bled through and bled on the sheets, or whether your friends or someone in the loo was like, ugh, we're conditioned to like feel disgusted by that, and that's where that shame comes from, that something disgusting is coming from us. But actually, when you get really curious about it, I mean, it's not just blood, actually, it's a different combination of things, like cervical mucus, parts of the endometrium lining, everything comes through.
Good old little potion of magic.
So a really nice practice, this might be a bit mind-blowing, but so I use a menstrual cup, and a really nice practice that I like to do when I bleed, so from my menstrual cup, I like pour that blood into a bottle, mix it with water, dilute it, and then water my plants in the garden with it as a to like give back and sort of honor being in a body that bleeds, because there's no shame in it. And so the plants quite like the nitrate in as well. So that's a really nice.
And the iron will be really good for the plants as well.
Cheryl's husband, unfortunately, is getting it in the neck today. So she's the secret is about him. I'm not sure how he'll feel about that. But tell us again more about the male side that you want to know about, Cheryl, because I think this sort of maybe this disgust has come from the patriarchal way of things. She's saying blood and guts, bodily fluids, the reason I'm not a nurse. It's it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? This weird thing that we've been brought up with around not talking about not only the blood and everything, but just the fact that we apologize for certain aspects of our natural cycles, and there's almost a ridicule behind it as well. So I remember being sort of maybe 19, 20, something like that, and was out in my local pub, and somebody I'd sort of snogged one of the lads or something a couple of weeks or the week before, something like that, and all his mates were like teasing him and saying, oh, how far did you get, that sort of thing. And he'd made a comment that he didn't get very far, and someone said, oh, she on the blob, and it went round like wildfire, and they were shouting it and everything, and I just remember feeling really humiliated and violated, and it was just this weird moment that I've actually forgotten about until then, and there's that as well, isn't it? There's all that shame stuff and the ridicule of even if you're in a bad mood or you're feeling sensitive or emotional. Oh, is it that time? That sort of attitude drives me wild.
Well, like you taught to treat it differently from a very, very young age. We're not nurtured as to how to deal with it. It's, oh, you've got a stomachache, take a couple of paracetamols and go put yourself in bed for a couple of days. Absolutely no, I've still got a bloody life to lead. No pun intended there. Boom. But also, I remember when we were talking about at school, the boys were taken in one class and the girls were taken in another class. And it's like, I find that so alien. And then
it was bringing people in what to do that.
We were there's tampons, this is why you had it, whereas actually if we amalgamated those classes and actually talked about it in real terms, there would be a better understanding than lads going, oh, you're on the blob.
And do they do that now? Do they do this better in schools now? I mean, I have no real knowledge of that.
My daughter's 20 and they didn't when she was at high school. It was still separated. I don't know, Neve's only 6, so I don't know about it changing, but certainly she's been left school 4 years. Certainly the same when she was in science lessons, 2 separate classes.
So I just wanted to cover a few things. Firstly, it hasn't really got much better. Someone else within my facilitator training is an actual teacher, and she showed us, and it's a paragraph in the syllabus, so it's not like a real huge amount. And even one of my private clients, her daughter started her period and was asked by the teachers to not disclose that to the rest of the students, and she had to keep it secret for a year until they were taught about it in their whatever their
PHSE classes.
Yeah. So this poor girl was having to keep it quiet for a year and be stealth under the radar. How much how are you gonna feel like an outcast? That was just a couple of years ago. So just to answer about Cheryl's thing, it's not that it's for men specifically, it's for everyone, because part of this is about creating a conversation. It's about giving everybody a new language to be able to communicate what we're feeling, but also to have conversations within the home about I'm feeling this right now, I need help doing X, Y, or Z, or for that to become habit or routine, for the week of your bleed, not having to ask for that extra help, just for that to be known that that's the week you need extra help, and for men to have that awareness, and for parents to have that awareness to be able to talk to their children, sons and daughters, about this happening, so that boys can grow up being more informed about women, for their sisters, their girlfriends, what's happening to their mothers, what's going on, and that girls growing up get to have this information. So that my vision is that young girls and those that bleed will be able to know what's happening in their body and when, breathing, so that is it. All it makes me so angry. We're probably all old enough here to remember the old Tampax adverts of the women cartwheeling down the beach. That's the top.
And roller skating.
Yeah,
Eat white jeans.
Body form.
Sure, we probably can, but why would we want to? Why should that be the level of expectation of us when we're bleeding? Because I have to say, it's like spoiler, like from the thing, but it's not like in your head that you have less energy. You do have less energy. Your hormones are at rock bottom during the week of your bleed. And so you don't have the energy to do it, but you're always expected to, or that you set the self expectation to keep doing more, or that you don't want to feel like you're less than or weaker, so you don't ask for help. But this is all about creating a new language, learning new words, new expressions, new ways to describe what's going on in your body, so you can have different conversations with the people in your life that you love.
I think something that I found really encouraging is that at work we did a women's health sort of a couple of weeks, and we did workshops, and it was open to everybody, and we did one that was specific to the menopause. They did lots, but I attended the menopause one, and it was such an open conversation, and there were lots of men who attended, and it was an open dialogue where we could ask questions. And it was so encouraging, the fact that one of the things that they were saying was that, you know, this isn't something that you need to hide. This is something that when you're going through it, you genuinely might need support at work, and you need to be able to have conversations with your colleagues to say, you know, this is what you're going through at the moment, and that things like you were saying about your energy levels, you genuinely don't have the energy because your body is not able to do that level right now. But your colleagues need to be able to support you with that and understand what you're going through. And it was really good to be able to just have that open conversation and almost no longer feel ashamed to say that will be something that I will have to deal with. And at least I know that I can have that open conversation, and that, you know, senior managers have agreed to tie into it and stuff like that. And I think that we are seeing changes in the right direction. I just don't know if it's enough. I mean, I've got a child who he is 9 years old, and I'm still at the phase of, is this a conversation that I need to have with him now, so that he understands that girls within his class will start to be going through this, and that then he can understand it and not make them feel ashamed, because he's got lots of female friends. And I just want to be able to encourage him to grow up without making women or people that menstruate feel ashamed of that, and be able to have that liberation of saying, perfectly normal, perfectly fine, because Rob's very good at that, and I want Jacob to have that as well. And I think it is the next, you know, we need, each generation that comes through, the stigma needs to become less and less with lots of subjects, but this one as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
This is the thing that I think you guys have articulated this so much better than I have when it comes to talking about what this conversation was going to be about. You know, it's been a real revelation actually to get some new language on that, because I've been trying in my, you know, sort of lives and everything to say, you know, this is for everybody. You know, this is not just for women and people who menstruate. This is, you know, for all genders, because it's so important for us to educate ourselves about each other as well as about ourselves. And that can only make a better world, can't it? And this is what we're about, rebelling against those old ways of things that just aren't helpful to us, because they keep us separate, you know.
Yeah,
it sounds like Cheryl and Tim's children's schools are doing okay, actually. Doing better than some.
Yeah, I was looking at that. That's amazing.
Yeah, really good. I like, and that, you know, what Tim was saying about the children live in unisex boarding and they have great respect for each other. That's brilliant. That's what it's about, isn't it? Teaching, like, it's hard to learn that if you haven't learned that as a child, I guess. The influences that you guys are having on your kids is just amazing.
Yeah, and I love that unisex boarding, because I think, like, we can't always assume that children are going to do the worst thing, you know, and, you know, giving them like responsibility and the space to like to nurture that like level of like respect like for each other. That's a really amazing thing. And one of the other things, sorry.
I was going to say,
I was just going
to assume that. Sorry. I'm so sad that I'm missing the one on the 16th. So I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. I suppose we can't assume that look, just because we put boys and girls together, they're going to get up to all sorts of mischief. If you put boys and boys together, they will. If you put girls and girls together, they will. So we need to just bloody stop that and just let people.
Yeah. Absolutely. And another one of the reasons why it's so good to kind of break down this like shame and taboo and like be able to have conversations openly about what's happening in our bodies and have language to describe what's happening in our body, or to have the insight to be able to say, oh, this is different for me, is because otherwise so many things can go you know, overlooked, like, you know, conditions like, you know, or bacterial vaginosis or endometriosis or PCOS or anything that's going on like with cycles and periods. If people feel shame, they're not going to come forward and speak out about these things, and that can go undiagnosed. Yeah. Plus perimenopause, you know, I'm sure so many women have just suffered in silence, not even understanding that perimenopause was a thing and not having the language to really describe what's going on, just knowing that they feel horrendous. And so it's just so important. I did this really beautiful in-person workshop once for this lovely family, and there was 9 of them, and they spanned from pre-periods to post-menopause, and it was just so nice to like explore the whole cycle and give, you know, leave there knowing that I've given like an entire like 3, it was like aunties, cousins, mothers, everything, like 3 generations, like a new language to kind of say, I don't feel good today because, or I need help today because, you know, that's really important.
Wow. This is a great thing as well from Tim about the Ofsted issues. Really good. Sometimes it just takes someone to go, hang on. Yeah. But yeah, there's so, you know, again, that so much we can, as Cheryl say, knowledge is power. You know, knowledge about our bodies is absolutely power. And it is, like you said before, it's listening to that language, isn't it? And the things that could be overlooked and hidden and not talked about could be the things that really are very, very dangerous.
So it is the education piece. That toxic shock that Cheryl was talking about, I remember that was huge when I was about 14. My mum would not have a tampon in the house, not let us use them, not let anything, because you will die if you use a tampon. I mean, my mum was of the generation of, if you get your ears pierced, you will get AIDS. So rather than the education piece, it was the, nope, you're not doing it. It's bad, rather than saying, okay, you can do this carefully, but these, as you've said, Samantha, these are that you need to be aware of.
Well, yeah, it was TV fear, wasn't it? Because I remember big thing.
Yeah.
And I don't even really know what it is, actually. I just know to be fearful of it, because that's what we were taught. Be frightened.
Yeah.
So my mum had it. It's basically a form of fatal blood poisoning.
Wow.
Where she was ill and she left her tampon in too long, and then it starts to absorb the lining, and then it created like it was basically like blood poisoning. I was like 9 at the time. She was rushed into hospital, and you know, I woke up the next morning to like the neighbor downstairs, and she, well, for all intents and purposes, she survived, but I mean, she died. She had to be resuscitated. Like it was, she was in hospital for months in intensive care, and she lost all her hair, her nails, everything. It was horrendous. Like, it was, pretty bad.
That's traumatizing, isn't it? Bless you.
Yeah, but it's scary. So yeah, I like tampons just did not like I had sanitary towels like forever, which didn't make, you know, and all my friends were using tampons, but I was just like, I saw my mum at like 9, like with all the tubes, and like she basically died. Well, she did die for like a minute or so. And yeah, so that, which was a good like level of awareness, because mum and I spoke about periods, but at the same time I was terrified of having them. So
absolutely.
And then like, you know, your friends tease you for having sanitary pads and you feel like gross, and I'm just so grateful now that there's like there's an evolution of like sanitary products.
Totally. Weirdly, we ended up getting on this subject on our last Rebel Squad live when Feathers because he was talking about it. And I mean, I've been using a Moon Cup or a version of the Moon Cup for many, many, many years. And when I first started using them, it was a bit of a hippie thing and nobody really was using them. And when I told anyone about it, they were like, oh, so you have to like wash it out and like that's and I remember Ripper's saying, actually, because it was in the days when I worked with Ripley Fletcher, and I remember her saying to somebody as I was talking about it, get over yourself, for God's sake, it comes from your body. If you can't deal with the stuff that comes out of your own body, then you need to have a word. But it's really heartening to know that this is a more common thing now, that, you know, there's any number of versions of them. They're so much healthier, and that people are prepared to actually talk about them. And you know, it's really interesting actually to see that whole you know, development, I guess.
I love my cup, knowing I'll never be out without having a spare, because you don't need to worry about it. Knowing the fact that I'm lucky enough that I only have to empty mine twice a day, in the morning and before I go to bed. And it's so much more comfier. It's the best thing. I would spread the word, and as well, it's environmentally friendly, and it saves you a lot of money. It's amazing. I've used mine for about 2 years.
Unless you do what I did with the first one, which is just my first way of sterilizing it was putting it in a pan of water, and I forgot about it, and it boiled over, the pan ran dry, and then the thing got welded to the bottom of it, which I talked about last time we had this conversation. So then I learned to buy some Milton tablets instead.
But again, it's that educational piece, isn't it? Of I don't, like I say, I don't know currently what happens in schools. Do they talk about this form of sanitary products in schools, or is it just you have a tampon and you have a sanitary pad?
Who knows? Well, I think we've sucked up a good hour there, which does not surprise me at all. Bex couldn't get on with a cup, found it uncomfortable, and it is a weird thing. It is a weird thing to get used to. It really, really is. And I think you know, we're all made differently as well, aren't we? So it's horses and courses, like anything in the world, for sure.
And those that have like heavy periods as well or like suffer with like period pains, don't want anything else inside them. It's like more uncomfortable. So period pants are like a really good way to go. Modi Body, MODIBODI, they do like a really nice range of period pants. And they also do
period pants meant that you just free flow.
They've got like, essentially they've got like a sanitary pad built in, and then you just wring them out in water and then tip the water away and then put them in the washing machine to wash them out. But I will just say, so like, because I only got rid of my coil in my late 30s, and I had 3 rounds of my coil, so that's 15 years I had without periods, and then I went back to having a natural cycle. And I was like, so much had changed in 15 years that I found myself at like 39 Googling like what to do for your periods. So it was like I was like 16 all over again. It was like horrible. But then I found period cups, which I've used, and like you, Tracy, mine are like fairly like, well, light-ish, so I only have to change twice a day. But I went on holiday. And I have to say, and I didn't know this, and I don't know if it was just unlucky for me because I've not read this before, so I'm sharing it with everyone. What I can only assume is due to the cabin pressure, my cup overflowed because I went to the loo mid-flight And I was like, oh my God, what has happened?
No way.
Yeah, so I was like a good 10 minutes in the bathroom.
Because it creates a little vacuum, doesn't it? Do you think the seal had gone?
Sucks more out. Just
yeah, it was like not. Normally, I try and avoid traveling on my period because for a number of reasons. But it was my partner's 50th, so it was not flexible on the date. So anyway, I went away. It was day one when I left. So first day of my bleed, and and it was just a bit of a nightmare. So I was a good 10 minutes in a tiny hot toilet in the aeroplane, like doing damage control. And I got out, and there was like a queue like halfway down the plane, and you just know when someone's looking at you, like, is she just gone and done a really big poo? I was like.
Tell me you didn't have beautiful white linen trousers on.
No, they were pale green. But
oh, bless you.
So it was okay. I was like, managed to like damage control and walk out. But I was just like, oh no, what are they? What is the plane thinking? But yeah, so I will recommend heavily wearing period pants when you fly, because I just don't know if that was a one-off situation or that's what happens.
I'm so going to remember that now. And Cheryl, so we don't want to take any menstrual cups, aerosols, or bags of crisps.
Have you got anything? Might put that on the checklist. Have you got a menstrual cup? Yes, I have. Just be warned. How good would that be, though, if they did? If they started issuing it, just as a so you know.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
So interesting. I'm well going to have to Google that. Bex was telling us earlier about her wonky tubes as well. Bless her. I love this. The fact that there's people kind of commenting and things on some like really personal things, and we're able to have that wider conversation. That's a really healthy thing. And Cheryl just wants to make sure that airlines don't search for whether you actually are telling the truth about about wearing a menstrual cup or not. How funny. Well, Samantha, thank you so much, and thank you ladies for joining us as well. I'm so excited about the masterclass now, and you guys, if you're not a member of the guys in a generic human sense, I mean not a gender sense, if you would like to join the masterclass and you're not a member of Rebel Yell Club already, you can get access to it on the little ticker tape link that's at the bottom, the little short link. And there's also a link in the Facebook Rebels and Rule Breakers group to the Eventbrite event for that. If you want to get it for free, you can join Rebel Yell Club and you'll get all our masterclasses for free. So excited about it. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking. Yeah, that I'm excited because we're going to be looking at like basically everything you never knew about your menstrual cycle. So what we've explored here, plus more, and like really tangible ways to like work with your cycle so that you understand what's happening and when. So it'll be put in the practical piece into like our conversation about like how you actually put that into practice in your life and what that would look like.
That's amazing. And I'm so glad you said that, Samantha, because I'm just so giddy that I'm forgetting to do all the important things, like actually tell people what they'll get for their masterclass. And Bex, you are absolute right. Samantha is an absolute fecking ledge. Amazing. I love it. So what else was I going to say? So cycle tracker, guys, if you go on to Samantha Garstin.com, you have got you'll get access. Is that the right webpage for people to get the cycle tracker, or is it sort of a bit deeper in?
So yeah, you can grab that. So that comes with like a small workshop and a cycle tracker that will get you started. We're gonna cover like bits of that in the masterclass and some. So it might be interesting for you to like have a little bit in mind before the masterclass. I might be able to answer some more specific questions for you if you've given it a little bit of a go before. So there is like a 30-minute workshop in there, but it's kind of like just the sort of tip of the iceberg. And it talks through cycle tracking. So yeah, if you just go to my website as Emma put, and then you just scroll down, it says like my favorite resources. It says Cycle Harmony, and you just download it from there.
It's a beautiful website, by the way. It's really nice on the eye. I do like it.
Thanks. I made it myself.
Lovely photos of you in there as well. Really nice. Love it. Well, thank you so much again, and thank you to everybody who's been watching and commenting. And if you are not in the Rebels and Rule Breakers group, why not come join us on Facebook? If you're watching this on replay in the future, then thank you also in advance. Maybe we are far enough in the future for people to get better education at schools about this stuff. Who knows? So I'm going to end our broadcast and wish you all a good rebel-y evening. Let's give everybody a wave.